I'm David Climie and I'm the Project Director for Transport Scotland in charge of the delivery of the Fourth Replacement Crossing project. My current job is Project Director for Transport Scotland. That's representing Scottish ministers as the client on the project, and it's basically making sure that the taxpayers' money is spent properly and the project is delivered on time and on budget. Well, my degree from Heriot-Watt University was fundamental in getting me going in civil engineering. I always knew I wanted to be a civil engineer, but you have to have the technical background to be able to fulfil that ambition. And Heriot-Watt was probably the university with the best reputation in Scotland at the time. I looked at all the universities in Scotland, and that was the one that had the best reputation for civil engineering, and certainly it seems to have delivered on that. Okay, it's also interesting to note that I graduated in 1983 from Heriot-Watt from a class of about 70 civil engineers, and in fact 7 of them are involved in this project in one way or another. So 10% of my class from 33 years ago have had some involvement in this amazing project, and across the whole project we've got just over 15 alumni involved between the employer's team, the designer and the contractor's team. So there's an amazing cross-section of people from Heriot-Watt have been involved in the project in one way or another. I think the greatest challenge that we have here on the Forth is the weather. I think anyone who's familiar with the area will know that it's a bit of a funnel across Scotland for wind, and wind is really the thing that is the biggest obstacle to progress on the job. It affects everything that we lift with the cranes, it affects all the things that we do on the water with our barges and marine work. So really it's a lot of downtime occurs which we have to build into the project, and that's the one thing we cannot control. All the other technical challenges, we can engineer those, we can find solutions to them. Unfortunately we can't change the weather and we can't block the wind. I think what motivates me at work most is the people you work with. We have about 1,200 people working on this project, and every one of them has a fascinating story to tell. They've got a major contribution to make to the project, and without them all working together cohesively and as a team, we wouldn't have the successful job that we do. And I think any major project like this is typical of that. You need to have that team who can work together, who can communicate well, and combine together to provide an effective delivery of the project. I think my top 3 career achievements have been being involved in the 2nd, 4th and 5th longest span bridges in the world when they were constructed. Having worked in different continents around the world, I've been fortunate to work in Asia, in Africa, in Europe and in North America. I think to have worked in China and been successful in developing relationships with companies there on a bridge that I worked on in the mid-1990s, and to have been able to be involved with them again, both in a project I was involved in America and subsequently here as well. We have some of the steel comes from China, and the company that's involved in Shanghai was also involved in the bridge I worked on in China 20 years ago. So that's quite an interesting link to the past. I think the final thing is being involved with graduates and students and being able to be involved with them at the start of their career and just see how they develop. So I remember when I was a student and I had a lot to learn at that time, and it's amazing to have the opportunity to be involved in a job of this size and scale and to see how they develop into their career and become fully qualified. Probably the biggest major problem I've encountered in my career was on a suspension bridge in America. We were partway through constructing the cables, and they are made with galvanized wire. And we found that when we opened up some of the wire that it had been damaged. So therefore we had to very, very quickly source replacement wire, and that's something that usually takes up to a year to find. But we did a worldwide search. We managed to track some wire down in about a 3-month period and get the wire delivered and installed onto the bridge and not affect the overall opening date. That was a nasty moment when we found out that we had problems with that wire. I think my advice to anyone coming to the end of their degree at the moment would be, remember the learning process never stops. Always listen to everything that goes on around you, and there's always something new to learn. I'm still learning new things today from people I work with on this project. So remember, the learning doesn't stop the day you walk out of the door with your degree. If I had to do it all again, I think I'd make sure I learned Chinese and Spanish, because if you have a knowledge of those 2 languages with English as well, I think you can work virtually anywhere in the world and be able to communicate with all the people you need to communicate with. So if I could go back and start again, those are the 2 things I would focus on. Well, you're here on an interesting day because we've actually just achieved a Guinness World Record today, which is we now have the longest freestanding balanced cantilever structure ever built in the world. It's 644 metres long. That's the deck either side of the centre tower, and that has been verified by the Guinness Book of Records within the last few days. They came out and measured it, and it's 644 metres long. It's only in that state until we erect the closure units at either end, but it is a world record. And what is interesting is how much the tips of those cantilevers move in the wind. You can't see it when you just look at it from a distance, but when you're up close, the tips in the wind move up and down by about a metre.